Hello, and welcome to Team Franco Bodybuilding Podcast. We are on episode number 56, and today we're going to talk about longevity in bodybuilding. It could be a career in bodybuilding, or how do you keep it going for years and years and years. And I'm going to outline a few notes that I made on workouts, diet, life stuff, and today's world of social media, and discuss each one, and at least what my opinion is, what I think is the best approach, so you can endure and enjoy and be happy with a career in bodybuilding. Now, again, let me just backpedal. When I say bodybuilding, I'm including all the categories. That is, if you're a competitor, from bikini to men's physique to figure to bodybuilding classic, so on and so forth. And even taking it a step further, if you are not a competitor, you can still enjoy longevity in bodybuilding. Because bodybuilding to me is building your body. It doesn't necessarily mean you have to compete to have a career in it or enjoy the longevity. Bodybuilding is a way of life. Let's put it that way. So I can rename this, longevity, way of life in bodybuilding, and how to keep it going and, have success. So I don't like giving myself or making myself as the example, but I will in this case because, I still am reluctant to say my age. But I started weight training as a teenager, like maybe 13, 14, not seriously, off and on. Got more serious, I guess when my baseball career was done, competed, and that was 30 years ago there, So I've been weight training, considering myself a bodybuilder for well over 30 years now. And I think I've seen a lot of ups and downs myself personally. So a lot of this is anecdotal, which can help translate to you. So if you were a listener and, you might be struggling, with your diet, with your workouts, with life stuff, or why you're doing this, hopefully I'm going to bring some light, to encourage you to keep on going. So bear with me on that. So the first and foremost thing, there's no really, most important, but, because sometimes you see lists, the top 5. Well, these few things I'm going to talk about, maybe the workouts are most important, or maybe need to be most addressed for you to have the longevity in bodybuilding, or maybe the diet. So I'm just going to go down the list. I'm not going to say one is more important than the other, because you as a listener may have, one that is, or one that's struggling a little bit more. So workouts, exercise, right? When I teach my clients and we go over through exercise splits and what works for you or what may not work for you, the first and foremost thing when it comes to training is being happy, is actually enjoying going to the gym. Enjoying the workouts. You're looking forward to going to the gym to do that training split that you are prescribed or that you're following. I'm not going to say one split is better than another. Obviously, depending on your fitness level and where you are in your bodybuilding career. And I did a whole podcast, on this about, what's the most optimal split for you, so you can research that. But if you're doing a full body split, bro split where you train each muscle group one time a week or something in between, or powerlifting split, or if you add a little bit more HIIT type training, or whatever the case may be, even CrossFit, if you're happy, you're going to stick with it, right? Why force a type of training on you when you don't have to? Sometimes people will always look for that holy grail when it comes to training, and they're not happy. They'll jump ship, meaning they'll jump and like, oh, I'll try this one. Oh, it's been 2 weeks and nothing worked, so I got to try something new. No. Or if you're working with a coach and They have you trust that coach and you follow the split. But if you don't feel like you're grooving to it, you need to speak up and tell them why. Like, don't be afraid. It's the same idea. Don't be afraid to change your split, but you need to be happy to stick with it. Because again, I've done podcasts about training and how to get better. Being happy with the particular workout that you're doing, you're going to have more progress than doing something that you're miserable about doing. Obviously progress comes, and I'm not going to get into the details. Again, I probably talked about this before, but progress comes from increasing volume, increasing intensity, and you're going to see that in your physique when you change. And you can get those results from doing a full body. I've seen it. If you can only work out 3 days a week, you can do a full body Monday, Wednesday, Friday, as long as you have the intensity, you're adding in the volume, and if you enjoy it, you're happy with it, you're going to make progress. Same thing, bro split. I mean, if you want to do one muscle group and do 3 or 4 exercises per day and spread it out, if it fits your lifestyle and you're happy and you are making progress, getting stronger and seeing physical changes, then go for it. Now, me personally, I like something in between. I did a whole podcast about 4-day splits being my favorite, and if you are a listener that you would have caught on that I'm now doing the push-pull and still loving it. That's my update on that. I'm still enjoying it for the last at least 3 months and excited. So me being excited about my workouts makes the lifestyle longevity continue on even at my age. So enjoying your training is super, super key. And don't go fishing for routines that you think are best and always changing it up. You need to write it out and you need to enjoy it. So that's, to me, how you're going to have the longevity in the bodybuilding world, by enjoying your workouts and obviously having having progress. All right, so we're going to move on to the diet. And this falls into lifestyle a little bit, but diet, now that's a tricky one because when it comes, you need to find, and this is the one problem if you are a competitor or if you're someone that's trying to reach a goal and you reach that goal and then you don't know what to do afterwards. Again, I've done podcasts on this, way back when, and they're a few of my most listened to, where, as you know, I'm a fan of flexible diet, having some type of balance, obviously push it when it's needed, if you're so many weeks to months out, I'm not, and then when you come off, to me, is equally important how you go into your diet. So in other words, how you prep is equally important to how you come out. Now, how you come out of your diet is a reflection of how you prepped. So if you're going for a weight loss goal or being on the stage, you need that balance and flexibility that's going to allow the sustainableness, if that's even a word, into the diet, holding it. So therefore, when you come out, you're not going to have a blowout. You're not going to lose control and gain 20 pounds in 2 weeks. I'm proud of saying that my clients rarely go through this. Unless they're not listening to me or they go totally bro to make it easier for them, at least in their head. And then they may rebound a little bit. But majority of my clients have embraced my philosophy of flexible dieting, eating what you like, not being afraid to eat certain foods because it doesn't really matter at the end, unless you have allergies or some kind of issue, where that's going to make so much of a world of a difference when you come out. So how does this tie into longevity? Well, a lot of times when people do a prep, they'll do anything for 3 to 4 months, do something drastic, follow the coach's lead, and then they'll have a terrible rebound and fuck it all up. And they're like, you know what? I can never do this again. And the reason why is because that they think the approach to their prep was the only way to look great. And they say they look great, but then it's a mess afterwards. So it's that mental approach that matters for diet. And it's also the approach of doing something sustainable that you're not going to mess yourself up after you compete. That is my point when it comes to diet and having longevity. Because take the one person, like a typical client of mine, they'll diet, they can be flexible, we may have a free meal, they'll look great on stage, and then when they're done competing or they're done reaching their goal, they're not craving all those foods. Foods doesn't necessarily excite them. So they're, yeah, we're gonna have the typical little blowout meal, but in a few days, calories are back up. You're eating more of the same food or adding in things that maybe you took out, but it's not going to be a full blown out blowout where you're going to be discouraged over the process that you just went through to look great. So that is longevity to me, because that person is then going to want to do it again, because you know what? I look so good at this one particular show. I reached my goal. I know I got to do some maintenance and come off and find a surplus. But they're excited to keep on going about evolution. Whereas the other person, not so much. I've been fed clients from other coaches that do drastic things. They will look great, but then they're a mess afterwards and they feel lost with their diet. So that is something that you want to consider if you're a newbie to this and want to compete, or maybe you did compete a couple times and you're feeling down because you just don't have that sustainability in the diet. That's something where I can help. Now, what also ties into diet is what I call happy weight. What should your happy weight be? And everyone's different. Again, I did a podcast saying that, yeah, you can be anywhere, I forgot which podcast it was, but it was a 2-part version. And the second one, I went over greater detail, what not body fat percentage, but how much percentage of extra weight should you be carrying after you compete? And again, anecdotal, through all my years of working with people, I came up with a number anywhere between 5 to 15%, and maybe a little bit closer to 8 to 12%. So if you were a 100-pound competitor, so you figure anywhere between 105 pounds to 115 pounds. If you're a 200-pound competitor, again, it could be anywhere from 210 to 230 is where you want to be. Now, that's a guideline, for those that I don't work with. Now, obviously, there's outliers where some can be a little bit more, some a little less. But the point that I'm driving at is that you want to be happy with the way that you look. You want to be looking the best that you can so you are still performing well in the gym, making progress, but not suffering. Do you understand? So, again, that's an issue that you'll see people that are just too damn lean all year round. And that has its negative effects. Yeah, there are those who are what I call macronators that can eat a ton. It's hard for them to gain weight. That's the other end of the spectrum. But for the average person, you do want to stay relatively lean as long as it's not prohibiting from you getting stronger and you feel like you are suffering and, what's the word I'm looking for? I can't think of it right now. So you want to be as lean. Doesn't mean you have to have your abs showing or ripped, whatever. It's just the idea is that you want to be so comfortable where you're feeling happy with your body weight. You're confident in the way that you look. You're performing well in the gym, but you're not carrying excessive amount of body fat. Because the other end of the spectrum, again, some old schoolers will think, well, I got to bulk. So they'll gain maybe 15 to 20% of maybe their last contest weight. But then typically, if you're a natural competitor, you're just going to have to work extra hard. And most likely, by gaining that excessive amount of weight, you're not gaining muscle. And even if you have, when you start dieting down, you're going to be losing muscle tissue. That's inevitable. The key to natural bodybuilding is holding on to as much muscle as possible. That's why long diets or giving yourself more time, giving yourself that extra month or two that you probably don't think you need is important, along with allowing, blips to happen and all that. I'm not going to go into contest prep, but you understand my point. You want to find your happy weight. The key word is happy, so that you look good, you feel confident, you're proud of the way you look, but not having excessive amount of body fat on you. And again, if you prepped in a way that you gave yourself more time, more flexibility with the foods, you're going to come off of the diet and you're going to be in a much better place to find that happy weight. Now, I can give you, I have two happy weights. One is my heavy happy weight. And I might have discussed this about my contest prep podcast from last week, where low 160s, mid 160s is my heavy happy weight. And I can hold that, yeah, I'm carrying excess body fat, but, whatever. I could be as low as low 152, around that area, and I'm still as strong as I am 10 pounds heavier. So that is my ideal happy weight, where I'm looking good and I'm feeling good, and most importantly, performing well in the gym. But then I cross that barrier where I drop down to 150, 149, and then the effects of prep really kick in. So that's that, fine line, that threshold that everyone learns. So if you're a few pounds over the threshold of feeling like shit, then that's ideal for you. And sometimes it does take a couple preps and a few rounds and months to figure it out. But the bottom line with the diet is to be happy. Have the sustainability that you can have year round, so you are looking good and feeling good and not slowing down your progress. So something in between of gaining excess amount of weight and being too lean. So the third point is lifestyle. Now, lifestyle basically is a summary of what you've been doing, your workouts, your diet, but most importantly is how you handle life stuff. And if you're a client of mine, you've heard me say this, or if you're a long-term client, sometimes you'll repeat the words, yeah, Joe, this past week I had a lot of life stuff going on. And what is life stuff? Life stuff basically means when there are things popping up that you have no control over. And as a bodybuilder, that's tough because it's all about being in control. I'm not going to kid you. But to be successful and have longevity in bodybuilding, you're going to have to deal mentally with life stuff and not let it get down too far, get too low or too high. So it's all about staying in the middle. So for example, holidays or special occasions, and if you're not in prep, you don't sweat it, don't sweat the small stuff, because if you're going out to a wedding or a holiday party or a birthday party or whatever it is, there's tactics of going the way around it, but the best tactic is enjoy yourself. Because if you have already a good relationship with food, and I would like to think most of my clients do, following my philosophies, you'll see the food, you go out to dinner, you'll enjoy it, but it's not going to be an all big freaking blowout where you got to shovel it all in your mouth, because you have that better relationship with your diet. So the life stuff that happens when it comes to meals and occasions, it's not going to beat yourself up. It takes training, it takes time, but with the proper attitude and realizing that, this meal's not going to throw me off. I'll get back onto my normal plan the next day and just not overcompensate, because again, that's not too good, but you just ride it out and things will lead, get back on normal track. Again, like when people go on vacations, if someone is like nailing their plan, they're at their happy weight, they go away for a week, and then it might be 3 or 4 pounds up. Well, my phrase that I always tell my clients is that since you've been doing so good, I can guarantee that easy gain will be an easy loss. In a matter of a week to 2 weeks, they're back where they were before. And that's because their lifestyle going into the vacation was a positive one, so they're going to rebound quicker and not getting excited over food. They're enjoying what it brings. So to me, having that mental attitude and willingness to let life stuff happen and not worry, you're going to have greater longevity in bodybuilding. So to me, that's super important. And again, a life stuff is not always about food. It could be traumatic events. For example, not traumatic, but getting sick. So you might miss a workout, but again, the same principle applies that, let your body heal. You're not going to miss out, because in a matter of days, when you start feeling better, your strength's going to come back. It's not about overcompensating, doing more cardio. That's just stupid. but other life events, life stuff, losing a close one, which I recently went through, which was a tough situation. And, I didn't work out for about 10 days, but I didn't beat myself up over it. It was just, it is what it is. Pick up the pieces and you move on. But, job change, career change, family, whatever it is, you can think of are all examples of life stuff. So how we deal with it for all the days that we're not having life stuff events, you're training your body, training your mind, you're in a good spot. So when it happens, and it's going to happen, you just roll with it and you deal with it and you don't sweat it, okay? Don't sweat the small stuff. You see the trend here. So the other thing in the last one I'm going to talk about, having longevity in a bodybuilding career, and it's more like in today's world of bodybuilding. You've heard me say before, I started working out in the 80s. It was a different world, and even in the 90s, before the internet, is where I gained a lot of my knowledge, but it wasn't internet driven. It was books and magazines and self-taught and just doing tons of different stuff. Is that you remember that you have to do it for yourself. I did a Facebook post the other day that got nice reaction. And if you're in a rut, or if you're getting caught up in social media and feeling like you need more likes on a picture or comparing yourself to others, you got to go back and remind yourself why you started in the first place. Why did you start this career, not career, but why did you start lifting weights? Why did you start eating healthier? It's all because you wanted to better yourself. It's not because you want all the accolades on stage. You want to be that show pony that always competes so you can get more social media and promote this and that. That's not what longevity, that's not what a bodybuilding successful career is. No, it's about self-improvement. And self-improvement sometimes can get lost in today's day and age with social media and, all the fast pace of instant gratification through the internet and searching and comparing. That's not what it's about. If that's what's driving you, then I think you need to rethink things, because you're gonna fade out really fast. You're gonna have excess anxiety and stress that's unneeded, which is not healthy for your body. And eventually it's going to blow up in your face and you're going to say, fuck it, I don't want to do this anymore. And it's all because you are focusing on negative things that are not going to be positive in your life so you can have that longevity. So if you find yourself getting there, do me a favor and tell yourself and remind yourself why you started weight training. I'm guilty of this once in a while, and to me, when I take myself back to when I first started working out in my parents' gym, just with the barbells and the bench and nothing fancy, it was the smells. It was listening to certain music, so it's like I'll reset my mind and like, what, that's why I did this, because when I was doing that weight training, my body responded, it was like an addiction, and that was it. And I left it there, okay? I didn't carry on with it any further or anything. Maybe I had it easier because there's no social media. And that, to me, is what's so important, because weight training and bodybuilding is a big part of our lives, but it shouldn't be our life all the time. So let me repeat that, because this is a good way of finishing up this podcast. And it's only because I've seen this with people that I've worked with for many years or had great success, on stage or off stage, is that it's a big part of your life where you are focusing on your diet, flexibility, weight training, how to deal with life stuff, but it's not your entire life. Too much of anything is not a good thing, right? Because you burn out. And that's what ties into social media. Give yourself a break from the social media. Remind yourself why you first started, and you'll be on a better path. So, guys, I'm going to wrap this one up. Hopefully you enjoyed it. If you have any questions or concerns, please email me at fitfranco@verizon.net. Please look at all the podcasts that I've done. If you enjoyed this one, I would appreciate if you would share it on social media platforms so you can pass on my philosophies if you think it's worth it. And I'll talk to you guys next time. Take care.